Hi guys, so this is a special video that was actually like requested by some of you. I know on the history of Nimoyd a bit, because some of you saw some older footage and was like, okay, this is not pixel art, so how come? What's the history of this project? Well, the game, I mean, this is okay what you see right now. You see, of course, the game how it looks right now, but I will show later how it was before it was pixel art, because the game previously was not pixel art, and it actually started as a small two-man project, really, with and how we actually did it. I will talk a bit later, about freelancing. So this was not easy. But before that, maybe let me show you first the Steam page. So next week there will be this Steam page will be actually unlocked or will be online, this is currently in beta mode. So because I'm waiting for the approval. By Valve. It's not final yet, so whatever you see here, it may change within the next days. But this is coming. Also, the trailer is coming. This is the reason why I was a bit silent over the past weeks. However, so where did Nimoyd start? Nimoyd actually started in 2016. It was like a really small, tiny project. Really until summer 2019, we were just two guys, Jeffrey and me. Really, and it was ridiculous. Like when you're looking back, I was actually talking to Jeffrey about this, I think 2 days ago, and how crazy this was really, because it started as more like a spare time, half-time project, which had a lot of issues really, and then we also had to do freelancing, or in particular I did freelancing to fund everything, to not give up on the project, because I had this idea for the project, because I'm also not only the tech guy, but also and doing like almost everything that is not really about arts, but also the game designer. So I had like a very specific idea for the game. And when you look at the game, from back then, this is by the way footage from 2016, I think late 2016. You see kind of like it's a survival game. It has some abilities, which was like a cool idea, but which did not work out well. But you kind of like see where we were going, right? And the thing is, when you look at it, it's not pleasant. And so as stills and as screenshots, it was kind of like an interesting thing, but the animations became like a huge problem, and the combat feeling was awkward. Yes, this is of course a prototype. This is so you can always argue, yeah, let's improve this, but it did not feel well. And this was like kind of like so for a project that actually was meant to be much smaller, it turned out to be a problem. And then we realized, there are kind of like limits, in terms of 2D animations. And when you really do like 2D animations that is non-pixel art, this is really expensive. This is like, it's ridiculous. So it's actually in many cases more expensive than 3D animations. Here, by the way, you see also factions in the game, which back then it was already like an idea. So you actually were able to go from city to city and talk to the governor or something, like in our current game. And this was cool and cute. But it did not work out well. So we had a lot of interesting assets, a lot of interesting illustrations, and a lot of interesting mechanics that were kind of working, but the game just it was not fun. It was not, something was really missing. And even though we had buildings and we had stuff, so what happens is actually back then, and we did not give up on the game like instantly, but we were still super small, like just two guys, and so I then really went eventually back to freelancing again, and said no, this when the savings when we actually burned through the savings, this was like really bad moment really in my life, but it really helped us to look at the game, with really like a fresh eye. So this is, for instance, how it was still, in I think June 2017, and you see like buildings, you see stuff, and we were like then thinking, okay, what could we do with it? What is like basically the essence of the game? What do we want to do? And instead of just giving up, because people actually told us. Really, I actually talked to some publishers, and they told us because I wasn't sure about publishing, and they told us, nah, this game is just give it up. this is too rough. This is too much of a prototype, and this was true because of course it was a prototype, but yeah. So, but we then decided eventually to not give up, and I think this is maybe the lesson learned. Is like if you really have like a cool idea for a game. and you're like running into something, and it's like, it simply does not make click. You can actually see in the faces of the people that they are not excited, that something is really missing or something is wrong. Try to stick to it. Like, this is usually, I think, people don't talk much about it in interviews, but actually this is usually in startup and indie areas. It's always like a financial problem, right? So it's not like, we are stupid. It's just, your budget is done or it's gone, and you are not, able to proceed, right? You cannot, you can, if you are, a bit younger or a student, you cannot, beg your parents like all the time. So we figured it actually through freelancing. This was like really hard. So it was like, for me, I was like, for really quite some time, 2017, 2018, I was like working, full-time, or almost full-time as a freelancer, and then working like crazy, at night on Nimoyd. So by June 2017, we then got the idea, maybe we should really go into pixel art, because, we had like previously, we had some interesting kick-ass pixel art ideas. And so Jeffrey actually started to draw pixel art while I was still a bit freelancing, and I was then, tingling with the engine, because of course, if we really change, if we really go into pixel art, it has still a number of advantages, in terms of animation, really, there's some really cool animation still happening, but of course, it's not as complicated, let's say, as, high resolution 2D animation, like, in Disney. And for a game like ours, that is kind of like, top down or isometric, if you can imagine, this is a problem for the animations, right? Because it's easier to draw something that is actually from the side, like, think of a platformer, compared to something that's, isometric like our game. And we were playing around with a lot of ideas like here, with how to do the cities. And it was already the moment when I started to think about the 3D engine, like actual 3D. So the good thing is, of course, I'm a very experienced programmer. This is, by the way, one of the last attempts to do it with tile sets. And it was cool. It was kind of like interesting, But the problem here was, like all of these games, they are very flat. So you cannot, it's not easy to do multiplayer, for instance, on the second floor. So this is like footage, I think, from late 2018, if I'm not mistaken. And by accident, I kind of like stumbled across, voxel engines for this particular problem, because I was thinking, okay, how to do buildings, in 2D with this, this visuals of pixel art visuals, and then I kind of like mixed those things together. And as you can see, so the camera is still, really front. So more like here, the biggest influence is, of course, Hyperlove Drifter, and it was cool, but. Of course, it's not final yet, and as you can see, like we are all like already changing here the UI already, so it's going into the direction it is today. You already see like the hero selection screen back then, so it's actually quite old, but you kind of like see where we were going, and this was an amazing moment. Like this was like really when the voxel art, or like the voxel engine here, as I programmed it, it was like kind of impressive. And I was actually trying different out, also like different engines that are actually available from people, some open source stuff, because I, and also know how to do it, like, or whether I should do it like completely like myself, like, like in the past. And so, like, eventually it turned out to be not that bad, right? So these are really, this is really some quick prototyping. We then changed the UI. I think this is already beginning of 2019. And as you can see, it's kind of like starting to really feel better. And as something more unique. So, and we at least did not encounter, any other survival games that actually look like this. So this was like kind of like this aha moment. And this is basically maybe what I can really tell you. Like if you really, when you compare to like how the game was previously, 2D, everybody was saying, yeah, maybe shut up, do something completely different. But if the mechanics are right, and if you feel like this is really like an important game to you, and that you may be on something, on the right track, keep going, because you become kind of like the expert in that particular genre. I mean, I am playing survival games like for ages already. So of course I don't know like everything, but when you spend so much time on something, you become like kind of like an expert. So which means whatever you come up with, like here, the combination of some ideas from, say, some building games where you can actually build, like walls, and the combination of survival mechanics. This was kind of impressive. And of course, this is happening because we spent so much time on this that we were not bad. By the way, this is how the save game screen was like originally meant to be. It did not work out well because we actually implemented it. It was just not cool. Like it was something, it was not cool. But I think you will see kind of like the influence from Spore. Because I love Spore, I love like everything that Will Wright did. Here, kind of like dungeons, how dungeons at the surface, and this was like kind of like the time where we also then when I started to hire more people. Like previously we were just 2 guys, and I think in 2019, I don't remember exactly when. I think August, we then slowly started to hire a few people. So I basically quit freelancing after a really long time, which was very good for my health because because of this stupid freelancing, I really I have now allergies. I'm allergic against everything because of the stress. Working at night, working during the day, working on the weekends. I think I didn't have like a free day for like I don't know 4 years or 5 years or something. But you kind of like see what in turn we got, right? So we have an interesting game, and this was kind of like in August 2019. It's like slowly going into a certain direction, kind of like, you still see some abilities, by the way. So the idea of using abilities was still there, but I felt quite unhappy. This is, by the way, art done by Jeffrey. He's still an amazing illustrator. And this is, of course, pixel art when you look closer. And this is one of the characters that you actually can play. This is Jotna. He is of the Rizza faction by all giants. This is, by the way, Jarhead. It's another character that you can play. So what also happened at the same time, I basically streamlined or basically reworked because we had some freedom, right? So in 2017 and in 2018, yes, we were kicking a lot of prototypes and destroying and like reworking a lot of things. But also I took my time and to really rethink all the factions and everything and the lore system. And then eventually, when more people joined the team, they actually helped to expand it, of course. So this is the game today again. So I thought, I know this was like now a lot of footage and information in like very brief time. Maybe I should do another video if you're interested. But I hope you see now kind of like where we are coming from. So it really started like really as a 2-man project, which was kind of risky. We technically should not have been here because so many people actually told us to give up, like eventually, and we just didn't give up. So we just said, fuck it, I'm sorry, pardon my language. We then said, yeah, whatever, we'll go for, I will then freelance. And we were then somehow, fund it, and everything will be fine. And by, summer, I don't know, I think it was summer 2019, I felt like, oh, this is looking right now, with the VOXEL engine, the graphics looking better, better ideas for the factions and everything. And I will show you in a second also some of the new screens. So I think, yeah, this is, by the way, these are like the recent screen improvements, as you can see. This is, by the way, the character screen, which is kind of cool. Of course, the game looks so much better than back then. But the lesson to be learned is, I think, if you have like a great idea and if you're like a very small team of 2 people, just try to find a way to survive this. This is, by the way, one of the, because we have two upgrade or level up screens. This is, by the way, about how you upgrade stats and your abilities in the game. And you will see in a second how you actually unlock recipes. Here. So but I will explain how this works in the game maybe like eventually, because this changed a bit because I was a bit unhappy about how we did it like previously. Of course, the game looks now much better and more interesting, but we had a lot of sacrifices to make, right? And we were just not listening to some people. I think we can talk about a lot of things, but actually one of the tricks is really sometimes if you really believe in your game and if you want to do it, and if you just have to be a bit more creative, maybe make a few sacrifices. I don't know. This is, by the way, the encyclopedia screen. now it's also new, where you actually can look up your items, because there's so many different items. So this screen is, by the way, quite dynamic, depending on what you're looking at. It's just something I found very useful, because I'm so tired of looking up wiki pages, websites when I'm playing a crafting game. So just a hint. Yeah, the video is now almost done. Big thanks for for watching the video. I hope it was interesting. To us, it was a bit strange, I must say. It was a bit strange to go through some super old footage of the game, because we are like so much. We are always like forward, moving very fast, and then trying to do as much as possible. And nowadays, I think I saw something. Someone said something like, yeah, you guys are now, I think, 10 people. By the way, like all of the other guys are also like freelancers, and so they were like, yeah, bigger studio. And truth is, actually, of course, we are still funded, still self-funded. And of course, it started much smaller and more humble, like really. And just because, of those sacrifices, and we somehow managed it to go where we are today. I mean, who knows how the game will turn out? So I think this is no big secret, right? So I mean, you never know how it will go on Steam. But of course, the game is kind of like more interesting, more promising right now than it was before. And this was it was a long road. And one of the bigger lessons, as mentioned earlier, is really if you really have an idea, like really from the game design perspective, you have an idea for the game mechanics, it's really easy to get distracted by technology, by comments from publishers, whatever, people, from fans. Sometimes it's really better to find some freedom, and this is usually some financial freedom, whether it's freelancing, or I don't know, through parents or whatever. I mean, I know by now a lot of people how other developers did this. So yeah, it's the trickiest thing. But I think this is kind of our story, that it really goes back to this two-man show. It's actually, when I'm trying to think about this, how this was, it's like insane, like really having like nightly calls about the progress, while at the same time doing some freelancing like during the day. This was not healthy at all. This was not something that I can recommend, but as you can see, it worked out. All right, I will, so much from my side. I will show more of the trailer. I will show the new trailer and also the Steam page next week. So